Hi, this is Matthew Saventi from the Global Preparedness Partnership, talking to you about the partnership itself and a little bit about what we discussed at the Internetwork Day today in Geneva. So firstly, the Global Preparedness Partnership was born at the World Humanitarian Summit, is an initiative of the summit, and it's made up of several core partners, the first of which being the Vulnerable 20, 48 countries vulnerable to climate change, FAO, OCHA, the Global Facility for Disaster Risk Reduction and Recovery, which is part of a World Bank initiative, the WFP, the World Food Programme, and UNDP. So altogether, they make up the core partners of the partnership. There are many other organisations also involved, UNOPS, IFRC, CADRI, GNDR, many other initiatives are either formally partners or working with GPP to take the work forward. But I'm just going to quickly go through the process and structure of the GPP, and then we can talk about some of the discussions from the Internetwork Day. So the Global Preparedness Partnership process roughly follows this, where it starts with a government application. In October last year, we got 25 applications from 48 V20 members that were invited to apply. Of these 25, 6 to 10 in the next few months will be going through this process. And that starts with a very short scoping mission to define the terms of reference of what the GPP process should look like in country. Then there's an in-depth diagnostic review, which could take some months, where there's an examination of all the different facets of preparedness, looking at financial capacity, infrastructure capacity, the human capacity, legislative requirements, logistics capacity, all of the different parts of the preparedness package that go together in the country. Then an outcome of the diagnostic review is a budgeted program proposal, and then this eventually leads to the preparedness activities themselves, which are expected to take up to 3 to 5 years to complete in country by country. So the funding and governance structure is made up of a multi-partner trust fund, where the funding is put in by various donors into the trust fund. The trust fund is managed by a steering committee, which decides on where the money will be going, via which partners and to which countries. There is an operational subcommittee that's currently chaired by the Philippines and Barbados, and that operational subcommittee puts together all the decision making about how the partnership goes about its business and where it will find money, where the resource mobilisation. Then there's a secretariat supporting both of them. The core partners can receive funding, but also because they have a memorandum of understanding already signed with the MPTF, the trust fund. But all these other people can be involved either directly or via funding coming through the core partners to them, depending on whether they have signed MOUs with the MPTF. So, and of course the final output is capacity building support for government ministries and government departments to strengthen preparedness across all sectors, both the sectors of government, but the different sectors of preparedness. So that's briefly what the GPP is, and now let's look a little bit at some of the discussions that we had during the Internetwork Day about how we can fund preparedness. So the main question is, what are the best existing solutions, novel sources, or new ideas to ensure financing for preparedness? So we ended up with a word cloud where people inputted their suggestions via a application in their telephones, and then they voted on these different ones. Now, it's a little bit unfair, the voting, because the earlier your idea came in, the more votes you got. So some of the ideas came in the last, because we did 5 separate sessions, some of the ideas came in the last session, so they didn't garner very many votes. But nonetheless, there's still plenty for us to look at here. And because we were looking at it more broadly than just at the GPP, we were looking at preparedness globally, preparedness at the country level, and then financing for preparedness at the global and country level, and also financing for the GPP itself as a partnership. So some of the big ones, for instance, ecosystem mapping was talking about bringing together all of the different preparedness initiatives across the system, mapping what they're doing and where they're doing it to help donors identify where the big gaps are. And that's something that GPP has been part of, is not in charge of it, but has been part of already. Forecast-based financing is a part of preparedness, getting money ready for early action, supporting early action in the event of a forecast of, this is in particular climate crises, for instance, when a cyclone is coming, that funding is put in place immediately before the cyclone hits, so 2 or 3 days in advance you're already starting to get the funding arrive. At the global level, we also talked about effect analysis, the return on investment, building the business case for preparedness. We talked about ideas about regional pooled funds, better media coverage for preparedness, developing perhaps a new SURF window that was looking just at preparedness rather than perhaps the underfunded emergencies window, looking at a different possible window there. Learning from the private sector. Other global issues were talking about the cost of not preparing. And then there was also some country level ideas, which were things like preparedness bonds, where the private sector could put their own funds into providing financing for the government to do the preparedness work to ensure business continuity for the private sector. Those bonds would be then guaranteed by an international donor. Also inside the country, things like better preparedness visibility, using the private sector in the country, working with the Chamber of Commerce, when you're doing after-action reviews, being very careful after disasters to include where the preparedness worked and where it didn't work, livelihoods lost, money and time lost, lives lost as a result of not preparing sufficiently, to encourage greater preparedness financing for the next disaster. And then there was some discussion about where we also could find funding for the GPP, and that was things like a multi-stage MPTF, where the MPTF could have different sections in it, where they were looking just at funding the diagnostic reviews, or funding the preparedness, or funding knowledge management and quality assurance afterwards. There were some other ideas at the country level, such as specific travel levies, special taxes for preparedness. For another one for the GPP might be thinking about how to measure social returns. We talk a lot about the financial returns, but we don't talk about the social impact of being well prepared for an emergency. Anyway, that's just a few, kind of a loose capturing of some of the ideas that came out of the Internet Workday. We had a lot of great ideas, and hopefully we'll be able to put some of them into work in the future. Thank you.